Everything works?
Yeah, it works. Hello, everyone. Today, we're honored to have Dr. Yalin Zheng from University of Liverpool from UK to talk about how AI can help detect systemic disease from the eye, using the eye as a window. And Dr. Yalin Zheng is the full professor at the University of Liverpool, and he has been working on AI's application in ophthalmology for in the past decade. Let's welcome Dr. Yalin Zheng's talk.
Thank you. Thank you, Mary, for the introduction and also invitation to be here. And so the talk today is about AI and I and as windows to human health. And so to begin with, so just in case no one has been to England, so you can see Liverpool is northwest to England and or the UK. And Liverpool has a rich history in terms of maritime, and it's the most important port in the UK. And you can see it's the fifth largest city in the UK, but maybe very small in the US. And this is the waterfront. And this is a classic picture and of three queens and big liners of Cunard and united at Liverpool in 2015. Because as you may know, and Cunard, which is a big company running this and luxury liner, and for long history, and also yeah, and so many in the old time, many people and take their journey from England to the US for better life. And having said that, and if you have chance in 2 years' time, you can visit Liverpool, and there will be four queens for the first time to come back to Liverpool and the spiritual home and of the company to celebrate and our and European capital and European capital of culture, because Liverpool is rich in history, and this is kind of historic and see, and this is statue and also and of Beatles. If you are born in 1950s or 70s, this they are very popular, and you can see they when they arrive and New York and JFK Airport. And certainly, and music is not enough, and the city also have good reputation in football or soccer here, and we have red and blue. And so LFC is much luckier than Everton. Although LFC bought a stadium from Everton when they started, but Liverpool is more successful, you can see, and they got a recent and Premier League titles. So number 20. So the whole city is has a rich history and culture and of passion, and for also, and the university has and five universities also, and our city is very small, and for example our university is one of the and top 24 research-led universities, just like our the league here. And so I'm based at the Vision Science Department. So if you are working in the Vision Science, and you should you know this kind of a background, you talk about how many people, over 2 billion people have one or the other kind of visual impairment, and this cost is huge. In the US, you talk about over 400 billion. That is a global cost every year. And for many people, loss of vision is a big problem. And some people may think this is worse than loss of limb, or some think this is even worse than death. So no one wanted to live in the dark. And so here is just an overview of our department. So our department officially was founded in 2010. Now we have over 60 researchers. Is the second largest academic and group in the country, and you can see we have a close collaboration with the hospital, and so our faculties have and recognize the expertise in different and area. And this page show you and our clinicians. So we have clinical academics. They are medical doctors, and so although if you have chance to work in ophthalmology, so the eyeball is very small. It's only 25 millimeter in diameter, but they have many specialties. And from the front, you can see the cornea. You have a cornea infection, and also you have glaucoma, and also at the back you have AMD and diabetic retinopathy and malaria retinopathy. So, so each of them have different expertise, and also we have a big and resource, big expertise and skills in basic science. So I'm one of them, and so my group focusing on computer science and AI. The other are focused on by new materials or drug delivery and or basic science discovery science and mechanism of eye diseases. So for my group, and you can see, and these are the past and current members of my groups, and almost all of them are engineers or computer scientists. So, and we have worked on and ophthalmology and other applications. So, in a short word, and so what we try to do is first of all is fundamental AI and research, and in terms of AI algorithms, and also we apply this to healthcare, including ophthalmology. And also we have a small branch in imaging technologies, and we have a research theme in developing new OCT devices. So certainly, and to work in the medical domain, we need and guidance or advice from clinicians. So we have been working with a large team of clinicians. And so this diagram summarizes our research. So you can see, and we have been working on retinal diseases and diabetic retinopathy and AMD and glaucoma. And also, and we have worked on using the retina to predict systemic diseases, just like cardiovascular or stroke or hypertension. And in front, and also we have been the first group to look at to use corneal nerves to predict dementia and diabetic neuropathy. And so here we also develop OCT devices that have been applied to and hospitals in the UK and also in Africa. So, and also we have work on digital twins. We try to follow physics principles to try to generate new vessels, and so that we can create synthetic data that conforms to physical principles, and hopefully that can create a virtual population for different research. So for in terms of AI, so in a simple word, and all in all, we try to and find a function f that is nonlinear, so that can create a mapping from various inputs to different and tasks. So this data, so the input can be various. You can have a text, for example, EHR or images, color founders, OCT or X-rays. or you have ECG or EEG or other videos, and so on and so forth. And in terms of the applications, it can be a decision, diagnosis, or prediction, or new biomarkers, or in the modern time. And you can use this function to generate and report automatically. And so for many of you, and must be familiar with the history of AI, so you can see AI actually, and it's just 70 years old. So compared to medicine, it's just a young discipline. And but over the past 70 years, there have been already three and golden age, including now, and when there are investments, and also many people have hypers in AI, and but also there are winters. You can see there are two winters, and one is the 70s and the 90s, when when people found that AI cannot solve the problems, so no one invested it. So it's very hard for researcher to continue. But as you know, the kind of godfather figure, Jeffrey Hinton, has stayed in the field all the time. And you can see from backpropagation to deep learning and all this and years. And so from 2012, and we have AlexNet, that marks the new era or golden time of this era. And so if you look at the evolution or the timelines of AI, and you can see that it's accelerating over time. And for the first 60 or almost over 60 or 70 years, and so it's a traditional AI, which is very, the development is very slow. But from 2012 to now, there are only 15 years, and so the change is rapid or transformative. This benefit three and important reasons. One is about big data, and so we have and a large amount of data that are available nowadays. And at the same time, we have more powerful algorithms in terms of AI. And so you can see, and we have different networks from AlexNet and to ResNet, and also from convolution neural network to transformers, and nowadays foundation models. And the last or the most important driver supporting factor is the hardware, so GPUs. You can see NVIDIA has already made many generations of GPUs, and that is essential for modern AI. And in a nutshell, and when you look at the difference between traditional AI and deep learning, so in traditional time, you have to get features from images, and then you can use a neural network or support vector machines to make downstream tasks. Without features, it's impossible to analyze images with AI. But deep learning, for example, AlexNet has and transformed the field, because now after 2012, we can deal with images directly as input. So this is a big and change. So we can do many tasks, including segmentation, diagnosis, and also registration, so on and so forth. But bear in mind, we need big data, and it's garbage in, garbage out. You need good quality of data rather than any data. And so here I summarize what we have been doing in the ophthalmology domain. And so we have been working with multimodal data, because in ophthalmology there are various types of images, and we have been working on detection of new biomarkers and early detection of diseases and diagnosis, and also predictions. And recently we also focus on optimal treatment of conditions. So I just show you a few examples, and so you can see what we have been doing. So, and this is a work and we have done a few years ago on the segmentation of cup and disk. So I will not go in detail, but here and we try to segment and cup and disk from California's images because this is relevant to and glaucoma and any if the cup disk ratio is larger than zero point 0.7, then people have a higher risk of developing glaucoma. So essentially, this work we have and the traditional and segmentation, and also we have introduced science disk function. So this is try to look at regional consistency. And also we can look at the margin or the boundary consistency. And the most important innovation in this is that, and we also introduce another loss, try to look at and VCDR, this loss directly, because and this can be, the cup disk ratio can be derived mathematically. So we could use to do the regression, because the use of this is that we can use large amount of UK biobank data set, because in that data set we don't have annotation of the boundaries, but only a number of cup disk ratio. So the third loss on the right can enable us to use those data. So we call this weekly supervised learning, and certainly and for and long time and the segmentation of retinal vessels are very are of great interest because this is related to many conditions and diabetic retinopathy, for example, or hypertension and other conditions, systemic diseases. So this was published last year and called GFCP. And because of retinal vessels and they are branching structures, and the challenge of segmentation is that the diameters are different, and also they have different orientations. And also the color founders has a poor contrast that make the segmentation very difficult. So always, sometimes it's difficult to get a continuous and profile of vessels. So this work try to solve this problem, and by introduce and the local features and the global features. So, and we can use the in the end-to-end pattern we can detect when the and the vessel are broken, and we try to join them so we can have improved the performance. So this is so here I show you some examples of this framework. So we will not only apply to color founders, but also we have applied to brain MRA and or and CT MRA. And so those are the segmentations, just an example. And so for ophthalmology, so we also work on helping, we have spent quite a lot of time on the detection of diabetic retinopathy. As you may know, so diabetes is a big problem, and there are over 500 million people who live with diabetes. So this number will increase to 700 million in 20 years. And the bad news is that, and almost a third of them will develop diabetic retinopathy. This is a classic figure that highlights the features of diabetic retinopathy. And you can see most acceptable the guidelines is to separate them into 5 scales in terms of severity. So think about almost a third of this patient will get diabetic retinopathy. So it's the leading cause of blindness for working population. So this is a big and economic, social and economic burden. And as such, in the UK, and we have introduced the screening of diabetes. So that means all the patients with diabetes will be invited to attend a screening visit every year, and then trained technicians will review the founders and tell if the patient, if they have DR, they need a referral to the hospital for treatment early, and that actually is very effective. That reduces the DR in the UK no longer a leading cause of blindness, but that is cost bearing. You talk about this population screening. In the UK, there are 3 to 5 million patients. But if you think about 500 million people you need screening, then this may not work. And we are the first group and who have been working on DR screening. So this is a paper we published in 2016 and 10 years ago by my student Harry Pratt. So this has and kind of marks the area of using deep learning for DR screening. And so we are lucky to secure a big grant from UK Research Council, just like here, NIH. So this is a program to develop novel solutions and for low and middle income country at that time. And this is a kind of a global challenge project. So you can see we have a big research team, and also this team, you can see we have a computer science, biostatistician, auto electronics, educationist, clinicians, and also health economics. So this and the big team try to address this and the big challenges. And you can see this and the team photo, and some of them are not in the photo because COVID, the pandemic, and some researchers have been working in China, never been able to visit Liverpool during the whole project. But we have achieved very positive results. You can see, and we have developed a new camera, and that can take color founders 60-degree and also OCT, and at the same time. So this had to solve the screening of diabetic maculopathy problem, and also wide field means that we can see all the features in DR. In terms of AI, we have filed 2 AI patents in the screening based on comparative judgment principles. And so the university has made a spin out and in 2022, and hopefully to commercialize the software tool for the screening of diabetic retinopathy. And so certainly, and if we look at methodology, there are different ways and to look at classification. So yeah, more recent work, and we look at and using and diffusion models and ordinary regression to address this simulation. So in this new framework, so we see and we and kind of rescue and severity into the numbers, and so they follow the ordinal relations. And so this has been able to reduce the errors. Let's say if someone has severity scale 3, and it must be severe than 2, and also must be severe than 1. So that can reduce this kind of simple errors. And also we have been working on prediction. So this is early work that we have done, and many years ago, 5 or 6 years ago, when we first started this project, we use actually we use ARIAS dataset from the US, so which is a bigger clinical study on wet AMD. So many patients have been followed by about 10 years. So in this early work, we use convolution neural network and also the GRU try to analyze longitudinal data, and this can make a better prediction and when the patient will progress to wet AMD. So in this diagram, in this slide, you can see and with more input from single to 2 to 3, and the performance is getting better. And also you can see and heat maps and of and this where the AI has been focused on. And so we have been working on this domain for quite a long time. So this is recent work, and this may be very complicated diagram to show. And in essence, so we have and use a diffusion model in the middle. And so the idea is that if a patient has a sequence of images, yeah, the past sequence of images, and we try to do encoding and of these images, so we can have historical condition, and also and we have a population database. Try to keep and this can generate a population condition. That means your data will be similar. You try to find references from a population, and then this are used as a condition to feed into the diffusion model, so that we can make the predictions. And in the future, when the patient will get glaucoma, and also at the same time, we can generate and the founders how it look like in the future. So there are two outputs from these models. And here I show you some and two examples, and you can see this is about the future, how the founders look like, and we can so compare to other methods. So ours is on the far right. You can see we can generate much better results and very faithful and to the and ground truth. And hopefully this will be further improved. And this is a basic table showing the results in terms of qualitative assessment and also quantitative assessment for this and predictions. And so I'm going to move on to the other and applications, because for a long time and people believe eye or the retina are the window to and our global health. And this is reasonable. And first of all, and the retina itself is a part of the central nervous system, so same as the brain. On the other hand, and the retinal vessels are macrovascular, so macrovasculars. So these have shared the similar features as brain, kidney, for example. So that's the reason, and people have spent quite effort in using the retina to make the predictions. And you can see, and our first work is, and sorry. So our first work is to analyze OCTA. So OCT angiography. That means I can use OCT technique to and capture the vasculatures of the retina. And you can see the superficial, deep, and also and inner. And this is the inner and the combination between of these two. And this can give us and up to capillary and features. So in this early work, we have analyzed the features of OCTA, for example, and retinal veins and arteries and the thickness and the fractal dimension, so on and so forth. And also we have analyzed the and the fovea in the middle. So this is the area without vasculature. And we have proof that these features can serve and good biomarkers for Alzheimer's disease. And following this research, and recently, and we have done a large study that use over 5,000 and OCT images. We try to develop a framework to be able to detect early onset Alzheimer's disease or mild cognitive and impairment from healthy volunteers. And so I'm not going into details, but so from this work, and you can see, and we can have, and we can show, and individual features and the difference between different groups, and also we can show, and in terms of the founders, where this and the difference come from. And this is another diagram showing and MCI and the control group. And similarly, you can see the difference in terms of global and local. And also, we have been working in malaria retinopathy. And for the US or other part of the world, malaria is already and kind of just a name. But in Africa, this and still claim millions of children's life in Africa. And funded by Wellcome Trust, we are working on projects try to develop and techniques that use OCT as a surrogate biomarker for brain swelling. So because when there is a brain swelling, and there is also swelling in the optic disc. So, but in Africa, the resources is limited. So as such, we believe if we can develop this technique, and we can use and cheap and easy to get and OCT images to then tell if a child has a brain swelling and then treat. And for this project, you can see we have developed a handheld OCT device that can be used on imaging children. And also, we are analyzing the images with AI. And so we are planning to publish the results soon. And so essentially, we have developed new AI tools for the segmentation of the disk and also and try to make the prediction of swelling. And and also, so we have been working on corneal nerves, and the so-called corneal nerves is this layer of the nerves is the subbasal and corneal nerves, and just in front of the Bowman's layer. It's the layer, the nerves are very thin. It's about 1 to 2 micrometer in diameter. But our recent research found that these nerves can be used for the diagnosis of diabetic neuropathy. At the moment, there are no and good ways to detect diabetic neuropathy, and also and so it's not reliable. And so at the moment, I'm leading a bigger project and try to develop new and solutions for imaging diabetic peripheral neuropathy. So in this project, we have two development aspects. One is we try to develop a new OCT device, and also we try to develop AI solutions for the diagnosis and prognosis of neuropathy. And also, as part of the project, we are going to test on human with diabetes in clinical settings. And in a similar pattern, and we also work on and using corneal nerves for diagnosis of dementia. So the focus will be on separating mild cognitive impairment from healthy, as dementia is a big challenge to the world and in the UK, and this is a big challenge. And so hopefully, and in a few years, we can develop this new OCT device and AI for this and work. And in addition to the retina, we have been also working on some other areas, and just showcase three examples here. So first one is about ECG signal analysis. So ECG are time waves of the electricity activity in the brain, but for some reasons, in the health records, and they all printed in paper. Yeah, it's no longer time series. So what we have done is try to treat this print as an image and to make predictions of cardiovascular diseases. And so we have worked in this space and for a number of projects, and we got very good results. And also we have been working on heart problem. So this is about the detection of calciums in the coronary arteries from low dose CT. As you know, lung cancer is a big problem in the health system. And there are screening programs in the US and other countries and by using low dose CT. And low dose CT have image of the lungs, but at the same time, it has the heart image. So what we try to achieve is using CT not only for screening of lung problem, but also the heart problems. And so just try to make a one-stop shopping and solution for screening. And so this is another example and that use AI to predict treatment response in patients with Hodgkin lymphoma. Hodgkin lymphoma is a rare condition, blood cancer, and the treatment can be very expensive. But at the moment, when clinicians treat the patients, they don't know which drug will be effective, and just try, and if it doesn't work, and then they change another solution. And we are hoping to develop this AI solution that can tell the clinician which treatment will be most effective and for treatment. And this is also ongoing. And so in next part, I just show briefly. And so what I've talked about are all based on supervised learning. So we need a label dataset, which is very expensive and time consuming and also difficult to collect, as many of you know. And so certainly people look at semi-supervised learning. That means, and we have unlabeled training data. But more importantly is nowadays we have self-supervised learning that use unlabeled training data to pre-train a model that can learn the representations of the data, and then this can reduce the threshold for downstream tasks. So this is the basis for foundation models, and you see, and there are different ways to train. And for self-supervised learning, this is simply, for example, if you have one image, if you make some augmentation by some kind of translation or rotation, so you can try to learn features and by similarity. And also this is framework MAE. So you mask certain regions and you train a model, try to reconstruct the original image. And if this is trained, then the encoder itself can be used and for downstream tasks. Certainly, and we can also learn the alignment between images and also text. So this is a clip. And so these are the basics for the foundation models. So foundation model means that we can learn from and non-labeled data, the representation, and then this can be used for the downstream tasks. And that reduces the threshold for downstream tasks, because for downstream tasks, you no longer need many data. And people also talk about artificial general intelligence AGI. So many people believe foundation model can be and essential and the path toward that. And so here is a simple diagram showing traditional deep learning models. For example, here, and for each application, you need the labeled data and a large number of labeled data to train models. But for foundation models, because we have unlimited data to pre-train a foundation model, then it can reduce the cost for future for downstream applications. And so ChatGPT is a type of large language model. You can see from 2018 how many large language models are there. And this marks the golden age of AI. And also, you can see over the time, and the models become so big. And the beginning is about 100 billion parameters. Now you talk about 1 trillion parameters. And also in terms of the data to train such a model. So now you talk about 4 trillion and tokens. So, and at a long time ago, 20 is only 10 billion. So that means, and for researcher in the university, and so it's difficult or impossible for you to train a large language model, and so we might just use to do downstream tasks and do some clever things. And in ophthalmology, and there are a number of foundation models. So this is kind of first foundation model called the RedFound, and RedFound has shown good performance. And for retinal diseases, let's say diabetic retinopathy, glaucoma, and multi-class disease. And also it can and predict when the patients will get wet AMD. And also, and it can be applied to predict systematic diseases. And you can see they have tried Parkinson's and also heart conditions. And Redford actually has 2 different models. One is color founders, the other is OCT. Yeah, for OCT, it's just on 2D images. And having said that, and so this is early concept work. And so what we tried is to use this Redfond model to predict cardiovascular and diseases. And so this is early work we use and Redfont, and we try to combine the feature from 2 eyes. Remember, and all of us have 2 eyes, right? It's how about how to use this rich information and to make the predictions is a big and question. And I haven't included slides because recently we have developed a model, a mixture of experts that can and take not only images from left and right eye, but also and electric heart health record into and the model. So this is in preparation for the publication. And we also have adapted Redfont for the prediction of and choroidal melanoma, and eye can have cancers. So choroidal melanoma is the major and the cancer. So we have achieved good performance, and we use ultraviolet field because this, and sometimes the tumors will be and not in the central retina but peripheral. So we are the center and have over 10 years of records of ultraviolet field. And we also been trying to train a new foundation model based on ultraviolet field. And at the moment, and we also write up the manuscript. And having said that, so you can see foundation model can be easily adapted to other tasks. And this is our and work. And we have used, so we use public data to fine-tune a waveform, and so we can make a prediction of four classes: normal, Drusen, DMO, and CNV. Okay, but what we want to use actually in a general clinic, we want to separate patient in, from in normal and from disease. So any eye diseases. Okay, so we try to filter out all the normal and the founders. And you can see in this application, we have achieved a very high accuracy. So this is a kind of summary of current ophthalmic foundation models. This may not be up to date, or because I only included all the ophthalmology foundation models that have been published in journals. I haven't included anything on archive. You can see there are foundation models, there are 11 foundation models, and over the 2025, there are already 7, and hopefully there will be more this year. And many foundation models deal with images only, but and you can see there are foundation models that can deal with multimodality, including other kind of images and also text. So, however, and if you look at the quality or try to look at the quality of the foundation model, there are big issues about patient selection. You can see because almost all the foundation models have used retrospective data, or the data easy to collect from public or anywhere. They are not representative. So these are the limitations of foundation models. And but the foundation models really are powerful. And you can see, and we have been working on foundation models to try to combine color founders and OCT. And also we try to build a knowledge and by ChatGPT 03 and get a target answer. And for OCT, we also get the parameters. For example, OCT and the thickness of each layers. And then we can use encoders to add these features to make a prediction. So we can get a knowledge guide and instruction to generate a report that is more reasonable and also can include quantitative information. So we showed better performance and over the other models. And but I think people also try to understand the data effects on retinal FMs. And for example, this is work published recently and tried to see if we use the same amount of data from two centers and try to train in the same way and on different tasks to try to see if the results are robust and generalizable. And so briefly, they have highlighted that it seems that foundation models are generalizable very well across different cohort, but they look at the fairness, and age has a big impact. So this implies in the future research, we shall to look at fairness and reduce bias in the data. And so you can see, and there's a big effort to try to reduce bias. There's a global red font and initiative try to create 100 million founders images from 100 countries. So talk about most of them will be synthetic. And so hopefully this can reduce the bias in the data. And so far, and is kind of a reflection. What can we learn from ophthalmology FM? So first of all, is high performance across different diseases, no matter it's common or rare, or systemic and the diseases. And also it can generalizable across a data set, devices, and countries. And so it's different data efficient, enable few short or zero short downstream tasks. But it rely on huge data and GPU. And if you don't have this, and it would be impossible. And certainly, I don't recommend you train any foundation models from scratch. In particular, if you want to train any large language model, that is really impossible. Yeah, and images is okay if you have less GPUs, and if you have fewer than 1 million, and photos, and on the other hand, and collaborations, and you try to build up skills. So, what are the challenges? First of all, is about infrastructure and the data, and the data collected from the different centers and different devices, and sharing data is not always easy, and also, and there is fear from clinicians. They always have this fear about black box. They try to understand how it works, why it works. So this is important to increase the acceptance of clinicians. And on the other hand, it's about generalizability of and also demographic bias, how we can reduce the bias in the models. And so this is a kind of and way to forward. And first of all is we have to work on the data integration, and also we try to make the foundation model smaller if possible, and make the AI more explainable, and also, and importantly, for clinical applications, how we can keep a human or clinician in the loop and try to make sure AI is ethical and bias free. So ideally, in the future, it's about multimodality, and so ophthalmology has different types of images, and so in the future, hopefully, we can combine images with lab results as well as environment data. And lastly, I think so, and the digital twin technique might be the way to help us to generate more physics-informed data rather than just generate synthetic images from generative models. And I'm not sure if this is correct, but it seems that agentic AI will be the future if we can integrate foundation model and AI agents. So if agent AI can integrate foundation models that can streamline the clinical decision pathways, that would be the ideal and pathway to go forward. And so I show you a diagram of our recent work we have been involved. And finally, I'd like to acknowledge my founders and to support our research. And also, thank you for listening.
I have a question. If foundation model is so promising, why we haven't seen big companies like Google and OpenAI and they lead the effort to train medical foundation model? Is it not just not profitable, or is data barrier? Yeah, because basically you're saying the foundation model is the way to go, but obvious the big company have all the resources to do so, but why we haven't seen the really spend effort, people resources into this endeavor? Any comments?
Okay, that's a difficult question, Dr. Wang. And first of all, and it's about and the data barrier. At the moment, so big companies has problems to access to clinical data, and in the UK, clinical data is heavily regulated. It takes years to get, and also, on the other hand, is about and deployment and how AI can be used in clinical settings. At the moment, I haven't seen any AI products that have been used in clinic, let's say for diagnosis. Yeah, because it's heavily regulated. So the market certainly is much smaller than general large language models. Because ChatGPT, you see the user can be billions, but for hospital application, the number will be much smaller.
Basically, the effort is huge, but the profit would be would be very dismal.
Yeah, it's hard to if you just work on deploy AI product and it's the profit is would be difficult to get.
Okay, follow-up question is, do you think we should have a unified medical foundation model across specialties, or each specialty there develops their own foundation model? For instance, red fund versus could be CT fund or pathology fund. So, what do you call? What are your comments on this?
Yeah, that will be great to have. Uh, Personally, I'd like to have such a kind of foundation model rather than each time we have train a foundation model for different applications. Yeah, just like and classify traditional and AI models. Yeah, for each application, you need to train a model. But in the future, if we have a unified foundation model, that will be great. Yeah, that can be used for different modalities, different.
So,
But it's hard. You see EHR.
So, but again, the problem is still the data barrier. Because then you need trans specialty collaboration, cooperation, and each department they have their own opinions on such big projects, right?
Yeah, you can certainly, let's say, there are lots of public data sets that are available. Let's say if you have EHRs, yeah, you have CT, you have X-rays of confounders. I'm not sure about the result if you train such models, if it will be generalizable. Because images, let's say you have 2D or 3D. Yeah, that's a big challenge right now.
Any questions? Okay, then we accept Dr. Yalin Zheng talk.
Thank you. Thank you.